Ladies and gentlemen, fight fans all around the world, let's talk some boxing. So in Floyd Mayweather TBE, we're going to look again at the saying that Floyd Mayweather, he didn't fight in an era that was full of talent. It was talentless or skillless. And we're going to look at what some deem part of the golden 80s with the four kings. We're talking about Sugar Ray Leonard, we're talking about Roberto Duran, we're talking about Thomas Hearns. Okay? We're going to leave out Marvin Hagler because Marvin Hagler was a middleweight and basically fought at middleweight. And that really is an area that Mayweather was never going to fight in, nor any of his colleagues except for some of them. Actually, some of them would have probably tasted there. But I'm going to focus on the least best fighter that Mayweather could have fought in terms of Hall of Famers, in terms of all-time greats, and Shane Mosley. He's the least of them all. Now the greatest of them all is Manny Pacquiao. Now I'm going to flip the script. You know, a lot of times they like to talk about, well, you know, if Mayweather's fighters, you know, if Floyd Mayweather was to go back in the time of the Four Kings, how would he have fared against them? This is the saying. Or, you know, if Mayweather's opponents would go back in the time of the Four Kings. I want to ask this question. If the Four Kings were to move forward into the time of this present age, Mayweather's era, how would they have fared against the fighters in Mayweather's era? That's an interesting question as well. But first, let's deal with one of the fighters Mayweather faced. We call his ace card, Manny Pacquiao. Imagine him being back in the times of the Four Kings. Sugar Ray Leonard, Roberto Duran, Thomas Hearns. How would they have fared against Manny Pacquiao? And before you guys say, oh, Manny Pacquiao would have been beaten by this one or that one, here's something to bear in mind. There was a fighter somewhat like Manny Pacquiao in terms of being an unorthodox fighter who was very busy, somewhat reckless, that these three fighters I just mentioned, Thomas Hearns, Roberto Duran, and Sugar Ray Leonard, did not fight. And that fighter is Aaron the Hawk Pryor. Aaron the Hawk Pryor. Okay? The only loss of his career was against a guy who gave him his final fight. His final fight was against, his almost final fight was against Bobby Joe Young, who knocked him out in the 7th round. And Aaron Pryor wasn't quite Aaron Pryor that we know today. He had used drugs and so on run down his body, and so he lost to that guy. Now here's the interesting thing about Sugar Ray Leonard, Roberto Duran, and Thomas Hearns. And I only come from facts, folks, so I'm going to actually read this stuff off. But first, I want to show you something. Aaron the Hawk Pryor, in the amateurs, beat Thomas the Hitman Hearns. Okay? In the 1976 National Golden Globes competition, he was the champion at 132 pounds, which would be lightweight, super featherweight, and he appointed Thomas Hearns to beat him. He also had wins over Howard Davis Jr. twice. Okay? This was in the Olympic trials. He was the finalist. Okay? So, before you guys go yapping, oh, Thomas Hearns would have knocked him out. Well, he beat Thomas Hearns in the amateurs. Okay? That's the first point. Here's the second point. And we're all going from facts. I'm only dealing with facts here. Pryor had an opportunity to face Sugar Ray Leonard for the WBC Welterweight Championship. Now, that fight never came off, and there's different people with different stories, but here's what they have here in BoxRec. He never fought him because he wanted more money. When the amount was increased to $750,000, he rejected that amount. Okay? He fought Sal Mambe in a unification bout. This is after he beat Antonio Cervantes, a long-reigning super lightweight champion. By the way, Aaron the Hawk Pryor, he was a super lightweight world champion. He only fought one weight class, which is super lightweight. Okay, he's an orthodox fighter, but he had similar dimensions to Manny Pacquiao. He's 5'6", 69-inch reach. Manny Pacquiao was 5'6" with 67-inch reach. Okay, so I'm just showing you some things. Now, of course, Manny Pacquiao was a southpaw. Aaron Pryor was orthodox. Okay, but here's something else I want you guys to understand. I want you to understand he beat Solomon Bey. Okay. Oh, I'm sorry. He never fought Solomon Bey. According to this data here, the bout was tentatively scheduled for February 9th, 1981. However, the fight fell apart when the promoter Harold Smith disappeared amid allegations that he was involved in a $21.3 million fraud against Wells Fargo National Bank. Smith, whose real name was Russ Fells, was later sentenced to 10 years in prison after he was convicted of 29 counts of fraud and embezzlement. Okay. Pryor was offered $750,000 to fight Roberto Duran at Madison Square Garden in April of 1981. His attorney told him not to sign anything until he worked out a new contract with his manager. By the time a new agreement had been worked out, the chance to face Duran was gone. So Duran didn't face Pryor. Leonard didn't face Pryor. Okay. Pryor agreed to fight Sugar Ray Leonard in the fall of 1982 for $750,000, but Leonard first had to defend his welterweight title against Roger Stafford in Buffalo, New York, on May 14, 1982. The Sunday before the bout, Pryor was driving to Buffalo from his Cincinnati home to taunt Leonard to hype their planned bout when he heard on his car radio the news that Leonard had suffered a detached retina in his left eye and the fight was off. Pryor said, "I pulled off to the side of the road and cried." Okay? My point is this, for those of you who don't understand. Sugar Ray Leonard never faced a fighter like Aaron Pryor. Roberto Duran never faced a fighter like Aaron Pryor. Thomas Hearns faced Aaron Pryor in the amateurs and got beat. And he never faced Aaron Pryor. How are you guys so sure that the four kings, or at least three of them, would have beaten Manny Pacquiao? Remember, Manny Pacquiao is a southpaw. Remember, Manny Pacquiao he wasn't just a super lightweight champion. Manny Pacquiao was a welterweight champion, super lightweight champion, super welterweight champion, lightweight champion, super featherweight champion, featherweight champion, super bantamweight champion, and flyweight champion. I want you guys to process what I'm just saying. Manny Pacquiao had beaten real names all the way up. Aaron Pryor, his scalps are the following. So you guys can understand what I'm saying. Aaron Pryor beat Alexis Arguello twice. Aaron Pryor beat Antonio Cervantes, the man, at super lightweight. That's it. Manny Pacquiao beat Jesse Vargas to get the WBO welterweight title. Timothy Bradley to get the WBO chance at the WBO title. Okay, and in fact, it actually turned out to be the WBO title. He fought Floyd Mayweather. He beat Chris Algieri, who was a super lightweight champion. He beat Timothy Bradley, who was a WBO welterweight champion. Okay, he beat Juan Manuel Marquez a couple times, twice. Okay, they were fighting for the welterweight championship. He beat Antonio Margarito for the WBC super welterweight championship. He beat Miguel Cotto for the WBO world welterweight title. These are not joke fighters we're talking about. Some of these fighters hit harder than some of the fighters we're talking about in the 80s. He beat Ricky Hatton, who was the lineal super lightweight champion. He beat Oscar De La Hoya, who was a big dude, but of course, he beat David Diaz, who was the lightweight world champion. Okay, he beat Marco Antonio Barrera, who was the lineal champion at featherweight. He beat Eric Morales twice. He beat Lejo Ledwaba who was the IBF World Super Bantamweight Champion. And then he proceeded to beat the lineal champion at flyweight, okay, which is Chachai Saxacool. This guy beat all those names. So this guy had a reputation of beating good fighters. And my point is simply this. For you to think that Manny Pacquiao, was in some way or shape or form a lesser fighter than Aaron Pryor, based on just his accomplishments alone, he was a much more deeper, well-researched fighter than Aaron Pryor. Now, Manny Pacquiao has never been a predictable fighter, okay? Aaron Pryor wasn't a predictable fighter. Aaron Pryor was tough. Pacquiao was tough. Aaron Pryor was orthodox. Pacquiao was southpaw, okay? Both were extremely busy fighters. You tell me. Sugar Ray Leonard never faced a fighter like that. Duran never faced a fighter like that. Hearns faced a fighter like that. He lost when he faced him in the amateurs. Now, you tell me. I want to know. You guys say that if Pacquiao was to go up into Sugar Ray Leonard, Roberto Duran, and Thomas the Hitman Hearns' era, that these guys would somehow beat him. Where is your evidence for that? I just came from facts. These guys didn't fight a fighter like Manny Pacquiao. And when they did, they lost to him. And that fighter didn't accomplish as much as Manny Pacquiao did, and didn't have the southpaw stance to make it even more difficult. So, at the end of the day, if we're just talking from facts, you can't say that Manny Pacquiao is a pushover. He's an ATG for a reason. And the people he beat in his era, some of them are tougher styles than these guys. Because their activity is off the charts. How was Leonard going to beat Manny Pacquiao? We know Floyd could do it because he had the defense. Leonard didn't have that kind of defense. How was Leonard going to beat a fighter like Manny Pacquiao? How was Leonard going to beat a fighter like Aaron Pryor? Do you know in sparring, Aaron Pryor had the better of Sugar Ray Leonard? Nobody ever talked about that. And he boasted about it. That's why he wanted to fight Sugar Ray Leonard. Roberto Duran. We all know Roberto Duran did not fight Aaron Pryor. Okay? Him and Sugar Ray Leonard, there was plans to get those fights on the way, and they never happened. Okay? Just saying. So, the one fighter that did face this dude, he lost to him. Thomas Hearns. He was always 6'1". He always had that big reach. And Aaron Pryor outpoints Thomas Hearns? Outboxes Thomas Hearns? You know why? Because of the angles. So when I hear people talk about, these guys, the opponents that Floyd Mayweather fought, the subpar opponents, makes me wonder, what are they talking about? I don't care which version of Manny Pacquiao these guys was supposed to face. I don't care if Leonard faced this Manny Pacquiao right now, who's 37 years of age or 38 years of age. This 38-year-old Manny Pacquiao gives Sugar Ray Leonard the fits. He gives him the fits. Okay? This 38-year-old Manny Pacquiao gives Roberto Duran the fits. Okay? And based on evidence with Aaron Pryor, I can guarantee you this Manny Pacquiao, he gonna beat Thomas Hearns because of his activity. So, once again, I'm just showing you guys once again, time and time again, I just keep on bringing facts. Fact after fact after fact. You just don't look at Floyd Mayweather and be talking nonsense about it. Alright? This dude's resume is filled with fighters that so-called four kings would have all kinds of problems with. Mayweather made it look easy, so it makes it seem like anybody can do it. We've seen people in this era Oh, we got the blueprint to beat Manny Pacquiao. So, Jesse Vargas steps to the plate, falls short, gets dropped. Okay? Timothy Bradley steps to the plate. They think they got the formula. He gets dropped twice. Saying. So, and both of them are counterpunchers. I'm just saying, people think Manny Pacquiao is a walkover because Mayweather made it look easy. Ain't nobody else made it look easy. Mayweather's the only one that made it look easy. Everybody else, it was a scrap out. You think that would have been an easy fight for Sugar Ray Leonard? You gotta be kidding me, man. Leonard don't even got the speed of a Shane Mosley. I dare anybody. Pull up the footage of Sugar Ray Leonard. I don't care which version of Sugar Ray Leonard you want. You can go with early Sugar Ray Leonard. You can go with the late Sugar Ray Leonard when he was in the higher weight classes. I don't care which one you do. Check out Shane Mosley versus Oscar De La Hoya at welterweight. I'm only going to talk about Shane Mosley at welterweight. Shane Mosley versus Oscar De La Hoya at welterweight. Right? You can even look at Shane Mosley versus Vernon Forrest at welterweight. I don't care which one you Shane Mosley versus Floyd Mayweather at welterweight. I don't care which one you do. Doesn't really matter. Shane Mosley's quick. He's quicker than Sugar Ray Leonard. You got to be crazy to think he's not. Okay? He's light years quicker than Roberto Duran. Whether you're talking about Duran at welterweight or you're talking about Duran at lightweight, Mosley faster than Duran. Period. Doesn't mean much, but it's just a fact. And he was going to be bigger than Duran. Okay? Because he's taller than him. He got a longer reach than him. And Mosley liked to do it all. He could like to bang on the inside. He liked to fight on the outside. He can do it all. Okay? Zab Judah will get mowed over by Duran if he fought him at super lightweight or welterweight. But not Mosley. Mosley wasn't going to get mowed over at all. At all. He was bigger than Esteban de Jesus. Stronger than Esteban de Jesus. And got more punch and power than Esteban de Jesus. Mosley mowed through every single lightweight in his championship bouts, knocking out everybody except for the first guy, Philip Holiday. And he dropped him. So, I don't know what you guys are talking about, man. Thomas the Hitman Hearns was a hell of a puncher. He wasn't going to knock out Shane Mosley. There ain't nobody that knocks out Shane Mosley. Conditioning is ridiculous. If Hearns couldn't knock out Sugar Ray Leonard at welterweight, there ain't no way in hell he knocking out Shane Mosley. Okay? It's just what it is. Now, in terms of, I listen to people talk about Hearns had a shotgun jab and all of this. Rah, rah, rah. You know what? That's cool and everything. But at the end of the day, as much as people praise Hearns, Hearns didn't got no chin. And Hearns had to lose too much weight at welterweight. And you know, Hearns started to fade as the fight goes on. He's less sharp. And on top of that, you catch Hearns, man, he turned punch drunk on you. You see what I'm saying? I'm not no disrespect to Thomas Hearns as he started to fill out when he fought Aaron Barkley the second time at, I think it was either light heavyweight or middleweight. I can't remember which one it was. He showed he had inside game. He showed he had a chin. He showed everything. He came back. The one thing about Thomas Hearns, I gotta say, he always redeemed himself. I saw his rematch against Sugar Ray Leonard. I thought Hearns won. Yeah, he faded later on, and Leonard took it to him, but I thought Hearns won that. And then when I look at Thomas Hearns versus Aaron Barkley, the second fight, he lost the second fight to Barkley, and Barkley not supposed to be no boxer, but what was cool was seeing that Hearns had a chin. He was fighting on the inside. He was doing all the things that we had never seen Hearns really do in the lower weight classes. So, do I think Hearns could have gotten knocked out by Shane Mosley? Absolutely. Vernon Forrest was a big, solid welterweight, right? He was more of a super welterweight than he was a welterweight, but you know what it is, what it is. He fought Shane Mosley. When he fought Shane Mosley, he was big, strong, powerful, and hungry, right? When Vernon Forrest faced Ricardo Mayorga, he got knocked stupid. Fred Fox never got knocked out after that. The only person who ever knocked him out was Ricardo Mayorga, right? He got knocked out stupid, though. My point being this. He won weight drain when he fought Ricardo Mayorga. Mayorga just hit hard. Now think about this. Mayorga gets knocked the hell out by Shane Mosley, who's also got one punch knockout power. Okay? Hearns wouldn't be the only guy going into the fight with one punch knockout power. Mosley got it too. And you telling me Mosley wouldn't knock out Hearns? Mosley got much better defense than Hearns. Mosley can, I mean, he gets popped a lot, but Mosley got a much better defense than Hearns got. And Mosley can fight on the inside. When Hearns was at welterweight, he didn't fight on no inside. So all I'm saying is, if you were to put Mosley back in time to face these guys, he'd give them hell. You put Pacquiao back in time against these guys. Think about what I'm saying now. These guys would, I mean, he'd probably box the rings off of them and then also beat them up at the same time. It'd be attrition. He'd have beat up every single one of them. Alright? And then you guys would have been shocked. Okay? I'm just saying. If he didn't win the fight, he was going to beat them up. They were going to have some marks on him. Okay? Now, Pacquiao versus Aaron Pryor, that's an interesting fight. Okay? But the point is, you pit Pacquiao against them four kings, it ain't going to be an easy fight. And my point being this. Manny Pacquiao ain't no easy fight for nobody. I don't care if he's old as hell right now. If you say he's 38 years old, that don't mean nothing. He's not an easy fight, period. His style is difficult. Alright? He's quick. He's fast too. Now, I'm not going to go to the in-between people. I could talk about them. I'm not going to talk about them. My other point is this. You take Sugar Ray Leonard, take Roberto Duran, take Thomas Hearns, and drop him in the mix with people from Mayweather's era. Put Leonard in there with Andre Berto, man. Put him in with Berto. Put Duran in with Berto. Put Hearns in with Berto. Be an interesting fight. That's all I'm gonna say. I'll bet you Berto stops Hearns. I'll bet you that. Now when it comes to Duran versus Berto, nobody gonna get knocked down. Nobody gonna get stopped. Berto's a big, strong dude who can box, alright? But I'll tell you this. It will be a hell of a fight. I still give that fight to Duran. Because Duran, you know, Berto's strong, but I think Duran would have been a stronger dude. And he really gives some really nice body shots. Sugar Ray Leonard versus Berto, I got Leonard beating Berto. But it wasn't going to be an easy fight. It was not going to be an easy fight. Because Berto keeps coming. Okay? You put them guys in with Marcos Maidana. I would love to see Maidana versus Duran. I know Duran going to get a busted up face for sure in this one. Because Maidana hits like... He hits hard. He hits like Thurman. Okay? So, I don't know who would remain standing at the end of that fight, but actually I do know who would remain. Marcos Maidana would remain standing. Duran might knock him down a couple times in the beginning, but coming down to the end, Maidana gonna make his presence known. Okay, there is no fight where Marcos Maidana hasn't come out of that fight having bruised his opponent or damaged them. That would be a battle in which Duran will get hurt. Okay, now. That doesn't mean that Duran would lose, though. Maidana versus Thomas the Hitman Hearns, Maidana would knock out Thomas Hearns, period. That's what would happen. And Maidana ain't going to get knocked out. I'm guaranteeing you that. He knows how to preserve himself. Hearns will get knocked out. I'm telling you now. I just know that. Alright? You ain't going to step up into Marcos Maidana's era, and Maidana doesn't do havoc on you, and Hearns just don't got the chin for it. So he'd get knocked down a couple times and then get knocked out. Just what it is. Saul Canelo Alvarez. Under the conditions of these guys being welterweights facing Alvarez, Alvarez would kill every last one of them. He would kill them. Okay. But if you're talking about both of them being at welter, then that's a totally different story. Okay. Leonard would box rings around Alvarez. Duran would bully him some, even though I don't know who would win at welter. And then Thomas the Hitman Hearns at welter, he'd have a good shot against Canelo, even though Canelo would probably get to him, and if he hits him, you saw what happened with Amir Khan. You know what happened. You put him to sleep, right? See, you can't have no weak chin coming in against a guy like Alvarez or Maidana, or Berto. These guys, they can take a punch. Now, can you? That's the whole question, you know what I mean? But just imagine fighting Canelo Alvarez under the conditions that Mayweather fought Canelo Alvarez. These guys didn't stand a chance. Thomas Hearns was going to get knocked out, okay? Roberto Duran, he would put up a good fight. All right, he put up a good fight against Saul Canelo Alvarez, but Alvarez would be tagging up Duran more than Duran would tag up Alvarez. And Leonard, I say he would box Canelo Alvarez. I think he'd box him on the outside. I think he'd try. But see, Alvarez, man, he know how to close that distance, man. Arislan Lara showed us that. And Sugar Ray Leonard, he don't box like Floyd. He don't use pivot work like Floyd. His pivots are too wide. So Alvarez would close that distance, and Leonard, I don't know what would happen. I know Leonard would fight back. It would be a good fight. So I don't know if Alvarez would win that or Leonard would win that, but it would be a hell of a fight. That's what I'm going to tell you about that. Alright? Let's look at some other good fighters here. Miguel Cotto versus Leonard. That's an interesting fight. I don't know how that would turn out. Especially Cotto being the bigger dude at super welterweight. That would be an interesting fight. I don't know if Leonard would beat him. I don't know. I really don't know. The style of Cotto is something Leonard has never seen, right? He's never fought a guy who's left-handed and actually uses his lead hand to hook and punch and jab and everything, So that would be an interesting fight. And, Cotto don't mess with that jab. So that would be an interesting fight. Duran against Cotto, that would be a fun fight to watch. Because Cotto likes to impose his will, Duran likes to impose his will. That would be a nice clash. Alright? I fancy Duran's chances as much as I fancy Cotto's chances. But Cotto would be the bigger dude, so I don't know, man. I don't know. I can't say. Full-fledged Cotto versus Duran, I don't know. I don't fancy Duran's chances, man. That's too strong, man. I don't know. I think Cotto would impose his will on Duran. But Duran got some boxing skills, so I'm not really sure who would win that one. Thomas Hearns versus Cotto. What I can tell you is it would be competitive. Hearns versus Cotto gets Hearns out of there. He knocks out Hearns. Sorry, Cotto could take Mosley's punches. He would take Hearns' punches, and he could box a little bit, so it'd be interesting. We already talked about Shane Mosley. He would give everybody the fits. I don't know how many fights he would win. Juan Manuel Marquez. This would be an interesting fight. I think Leonard beats Marquez. Duran versus Marquez. That would be a hell of a fight. Marquez is going to get dropped at some point, but Marquez is just so strong and so tough, and his defense is pretty interesting. I really can't say. I can't say if Duran would beat him. I'm being honest with you guys. He's small, but he's something, man. That Marquez. And he's smart. Thomas Hearns versus Marquez. Marquez a little too small for Thomas Hearns. I think Hearns will be able to keep him at bay. See, Marquez fights within a certain range. You take that away, you could outbox him. I don't see Hearns knocking him out, but I do see Hearns, keeping him at bay because Hearns had all that length. Okay, we didn't talk about Oscar De La Hoya. That's always an interesting question because we saw how he easily destroyed the guy that knocked out Sugar Ray Leonard, right? What I would say is Oscar De La Hoya would put on a fantastic... We saw him against Chavez, so we know he could handle a style like Roberto Duran. Leonard would be an interesting fight. I don't know how that would turn out. Thomas Hearns... Oscar had a serious beard. Oscar can take some punches, so I don't know how that fight would turn out. I would suspect Oscar would close that distance, and he would get to Hearns inside, and I think he would chop him down. I think he'd chop down Hearns. So, as much as people, really worship Hearns, I just don't see Hearns beating guys like anybody who had serious punching power. I think Hearns is going to get knocked out at some point once you put some pressure on him. And you go weak side like Hagler did. You got Zab Judah. Zab Judah is a very talented fighter, but if you get inside of Zab Judah's head, so I think Duran would beat Zab Judah. I think he'd knock him out actually. Leonard, I think Leonard would have a hard time with Zab early on, but then later on, Leonard would just dismantle Zab. Hearns would have a chance to knock out Zab at some point, but since Zab is southpaw, he'll present a certain kind of challenge to him. One of them will get knocked out. That's what I know. So, I mean, we're talking about these guys, but that's all the really good fighters at welterweight we're talking about. And at the end of the day, if you brought these guys to the era that Mayweather's in, you'd realize how challenging it would be for these fighters to actually fight these guys. And if these guys were to go back into their times, like Hearns and these guys' time, I think they get these guys the fits either way. So I just don't understand why people say, Mayweather's era was devoid of talent or the best didn't fight the best. I heard another guy make a stupid excuse because Mayweather was so dominant that, he found the right time to fight these guys. And, he waited till they were going downhill and all kinds of stupid comments that I see people making. If you look at Zab Judah, okay, Zab Judah right now, he's way past his prime, even though he's still beating up people. But if you look at Zab Judah when he faced Floyd, he was in his prime. So there's no excuse there. You look at Oscar De La Hoya. Okay, he was past his prime, but he performed. He knocked out Ricardo Mayorga to take the WBC Super Welterweight title. That version of Oscar versus any one of these guys is still going to give these guys trouble, especially he's the higher weight class. Okay, you talk about Ricky Hatton in his heyday. Floyd faced him. Ricky Hatton going up against Sugar Ray Leonard or Roberto Duran or Thomas Hearns. Hatton had a chin, man, so he could take a punch. I think it gets more competitive against guys like, I think Hatton would have more competition against Roberto Duran than he would with Thomas Hearns or Sugar Ray Leonard. I think Hearns knocks him out. I think Sugar Ray Leonard would box, certain circles around him, but it would be a tough fight for Sugar Ray Leonard nonetheless. But again, Ricky Hatton is probably one of the least of the guys. He's kind of like Shane Mosley because he didn't really have the resume. Shane Mosley has a better resume than Ricky Hatton, right? You talk about Marquez, all of these guys, Mosley, Cotto. These guys, man, they're not jokes. They're not jokes. And even when Mayweather faced them, I don't care what time in their career, when Mayweather faced them, they weren't jokes. They were performing exceedingly well. Alvarez just beat up Trout. Marcus Maidana just knocked out Broner. Manny Pacquiao just demolished Chris Algieri. Okay, Berto just knocked out Josecito Lopez. I mean, what more do you need? Okay, and all of these guys got. Most of them have higher knockout ratios than these four kings. Duran don't got no big knockout ratio, 59%. Sugar Ray Leonard got a 63%. He got a pretty high knockout ratio for his thing. But you look at the other guys I just talked about. Cotto got a 70-something% knockout ratio. Okay, just what it is. Okay, Manny Pacquiao's got the lowest one. I think it's 50-something%. Marcos Maidana's got like a 70-something% knockout ratio. Alvarez, I don't even know what Alvarez's knockout ratio is. I never really paid attention, but it's pretty high, 68%. Okay, like Sugar Ray Leonard. So I'm just saying, man, you just look at these guys. We're talking about Cotto. We're talking about Mosley. We're talking about Marquez. You look at these guys' knockout KO percentages. Look at this. Cotto 73%. Mosley 67%. These guys hit hard. 73%. Marlon Marquez. These are not guys to play around with. You know, these guys got people out of there. And you think about it that way, you begin to say to yourself, well, look, Mayweather, he didn't have that. He wasn't no one-punch knockout artist. This guy was, you know, fighting guys that were killers, man. Alright? So I'm just saying this to make a point. My point is this. It's very simple. Those people who say that these four kings, you know, Mayweather wouldn't last with these guys, and that the competition he faced wasn't competition that these guys worthy of these guys facing because they face one another, is dumb. The competition Mayweather faced in his era would give these guys the fits in their era, or if they came up into Mayweather's era. And it's just that Mayweather made the competition he faced look ordinary. But these were extraordinary fighters, man. No doubt about it. And they did extraordinary things. Okay? I'm just saying. Imagine if Sugar Ray Leonard had to face a bigger, stronger Wilfredo Benitez, who had more punching power. How would he fare? Well, guess what? Miguel Cotto has accomplished more than Wilfredo Benitez, and to some degree is a better boxer than Wilfredo Benitez. Alright? I'm not saying that all the way through Cotto's a better boxer than Wilfredo Benitez. Not at all. I would never say that. But to some degree he is. Consider this. Roberto Duran coming face to face with a better version of Aaron Pryor. He never faced Aaron Pryor, so we can't say nothing about it. But we know somebody who he faced that was more skilled than Aaron Pryor in a lower weight class. El Nato. He faced El Nato, Ernesto Marcel. And we can argue that Ernesto Marcel could have gotten a split decision win if the referee didn't stop the fight for no reason. You know what I'm saying? So, at the end of the day, when we look at these fighters, you have to ask yourself the question, fair question. Are we giving the fighters of our era, or at least of the era that Mayweather was there, a fair shake? Or are you just blanketly going with hero worship and calling these guys the greatest of all time and they're the greatest fighters ever and nobody could have touched them? Or are you going to really analyze them as, like they like to say, an aficionado, and really pay true attention to what they actually did and who they didn't actually fight? Now this is just for you guys to think about. Floyd Mayweather is of the same school as Sugar Ray Leonard, true. But there's something else you need to know. Floyd Mayweather is also of the same school of Mike McCallum. Guess what? Mike McCallum could not get a shot at Roberto Duran, even though he was a mandatory for Duran, Thomas the Hitman Hearns, and Marvin Hagler. And he never got shot against any of the three. Now, you can't say that those fighters would beat Floyd Mayweather, hands down, because of dimensions and blah, 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 blah. But they never faced Mike McCallum. None of them ever faced Mike McCallum. Okay? They never did. Roy Jones Jr. faced Mike McCallum before these guys faced Mike McCallum. Alright, so you will say, well, Mike McCallum, he was a similar size and he had a longer reach and blah, 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 blah. Alright? Well, guess what? I'm going to ask you guys a very simple question. Does Sugar Ray Leonard, Roberto Duran, and Thomas Hearns beat a Pernell Whitaker? Yeah, he was southpaw, but do they beat him? And all of this talk about you have to hit Floyd Mayweather on the shoulder. You got to hit him and tap him on the shoulder. Tap him on the shoulder. I mean, I listened to one guy. He's supposedly a trainer for Gabriel Rosado. And he's talking about Hearns would have tapped Floyd on the shoulder and he would be so far away. Like, you think tapping Floyd on the shoulder was somehow going to get you to win the fight? That's exactly what Floyd wants you to do. He wants you to tap him on his shoulder. That's the whole point. Marcos Maidana didn't do that. So, first point is, you don't tap Floyd on his shoulder. He born to roll and deflect that punch and catch it, parry it. So for the person saying you need to hit the shoulder, that's exactly what Floyd Mayweather wants you to do. He wants you to gauge his distance for him. You tap him on the shoulder, it tells him where your range at. So he can slip the punch, roll under the punch, bob and weave through the punch, snap back behind the punch, swivel into the frame and roll under, and start throwing his shots. Mayweather is not new to fighting guys with longer reaches and taller heights than him. Genaro Hernandez, Diego Corrales, Oscar De La Hoya, Shane Mosley, Canelo Alvarez are just some of the fighters who were taller than him or had a longer reach than him. Right? In the non-championship years of his life, he faced Tony Pep, identical dimensions to Thomas Tate Maharas. Wasn't as sharp, wasn't as quick, but he had the dimensions. Should have been able to keep Mayweather at bay. And it was easy for Mayweather to cut down the distance and get in there. Because Mayweather don't just use jabs to get in on the inside of a fighter. No, don't need it. Roy Jones Jr. don't need no jab to gauge distance. Okay? And I don't care which version of Mayweather fought them, he would have beaten them. It could have been Mayweather with the bad hands. It could have been Mayweather who was Pretty Boy Floyd. He would beat them. Why? Because the skills Mayweather has and the defense that Mayweather has, he ain't no Wilfredo Benitez, one-dimensional kind of fighter who can still get popped down the center line because he don't know how to keep his head out of the center line. Like to snap back or swivel out the way of the punch. No, Mayweather is a different kind of fighter. From the cloth of Sugar Ray Leonard, Ray Robinson, Charlie Burley, Mike McCallum. And you ain't gonna beat these guys with just offense. You gotta have defense. Leonard get hit too easy. I keep on explaining this to people. You getting hit way too easy. Pacquiao get hit too easy. That's why Mayweather won. You're not going to hit Mayweather. And don't talk about comparing Mayweather Jr. to his father. And Sugar Ray Leonard caught his, he caught his tail trying to beat Mayweather's father, Floyd Mayweather Sr. It went all the way to the 10th round, where the referee stopped the fight in the 10th round. All the way to the 10th round. That's an inferior version of Floyd Mayweather Jr. If you catching your skin to beat him, how you gonna beat Floyd? I mean, this ain't no rocket science, folks. Everybody want to talk about these dudes. Everybody want to praise them up because they gave you good fights, good competitive tooth and nail fights. It won't be a competitive tooth and nail fight with Mayweather. Leonard would scrap it out. Leonard fought a hard-fought fight against Thomas Hearns. That wasn't going to happen with Mayweather. Roberto Duran scrapped it out with Sugar Ray Leonard. First fight. That wasn't going to happen with Mayweather. It wasn't going to happen. So, this is my 4 cents on this Floyd Mayweather TBE. I keep on bringing up about this series because I want you guys to understand something. When you're talking about boxing, you're talking about past and present and different eras, there's a reason why Muhammad Ali said this guy was best of his era and best of this era. Because different eras, fighters are different kinds of conditioning, there's different kinds of sets of rules, there's different things that are happening. And as the eras progress, there are certain attributes that fighters have that improve and progress further with them. And there are other attributes that don't improve or progress, and some of them are lost. But at the end of the day, when you look at the pluses that a fighter have and the minuses, and you weigh the both together, because boxing as a sport has evolved, when you weigh those attributes and you look at the level of opposition the fighter faces, and you compare that level of opposition to the fighters of the past, and how much that opposition was seen as a threat to them in their time, and to think that this opposition now will be better trained, accomplish much more higher things. I mean, Pacquiao, you don't compare Pacquiao to Aaron Pryor. Pacquiao did so much more than Aaron Pryor did. Right? Aaron Pryor was a good, fast fighter, but he wasn't fast like Pacquiao. Add in the southpaw version of that. Add in the fact that Manny Pacquiao beat guys much bigger than him. Aaron Pryor never faced that kind of thing. He only had one weight class. Pacquiao moved up in weight class. I mean, when you think about what I'm talking about and the types of fighters Manny Pacquiao has faced in his career, if Sugar Ray Leonard couldn't make a fight with Aaron Pryor, if Roberto Duran could make a fight with Aaron Pryor, if Thomas the Hitman Hearns could make a fight with Aaron Pryor, it's because they didn't want to fight the dude. On that note, you guys have a great one.